Three, two, one.
So we are back with Give Back TV. Thank you for those that have tuned in for today's special episode. Today we are with a good friend of mine, Stuart Stevens. This episode is really to highlight the awareness of knife crime, what it causes to family and friends, as well as the harms of social media, and the consequences of how some people use it. So, Stuart, would you like to introduce yourself firstly?
Yes, thank you, Moses. Hi, I'm Stuart Stevens. I'm Ollie Stevens' father. Ollie was taken from us on the 3rd of January 2021 by children his own age. And it was literally outside the back of our house. It was a safe space. He was only went out. We only allowed him out of the house to stretch his legs because he'd been indoors all day. Just wanted to get some fresh air. He'd arranged to meet somebody, and he was jumped. This person had set him up, so there were 4 or 5 other people on site with him, and they were going to pattern him. Unfortunately, they picked the wrong person to do it to, because Ollie wouldn't stand for that, and he stood his ground and he fought, and he was stabbed in the back and in the chest, and consequently died.
Right. So, for those of you who don't know, like Stuart has just clarified, Ollie was only 13 at the.
Yeah, he was barely 13. He was only about 8 weeks. His birthday's November the 1st, so he'd only been 13 for about 9 weeks. And we were reflecting the other day with my daughter, and he was just so young. He literally just come out of 12, entering 13. Yeah.
So let's start from the beginning. Can you tell us about Ollie, what he was like growing up as a kid?
Yeah, always. Yeah, he was amazing. I mean, I helped give birth to him, so there was a real strong bond there from day one, because when my daughter was quite a traumatic birth, Ollie couldn't wait to get out. He was halfway out before we got through the door in the hospital. That was quite entertaining. And then they were short staffed, and then the nurse that was looking after us and Amanda, she'd only just come out of her training, so it was her first week. And between the 3 of us, we managed to deliver him, and I managed to clean him up and cut the cord, and it was just an amazing moment. It was something I'll never forget. Whereas I had no involvement in my daughter's birth, because it's very traumatic. There's a surgery team and everything else, so 2 very different births, but his I'll never forget, because it was an amazing experience.
So what was some of the stuff like Ollie used to like doing growing up?
Oh, he
His
would do,
hobbies?
yeah, anything and everything. We obviously we didn't realise that he was on the autistic spectrum, but he would get involved in something, but he would get involved in it 110%.
Mm-hmm.
So he would do it all out for a short period of time, and then he would stop and then move on to something else. But one thing that springs to mind, when he was about 9, he wanted a cocktail shaker for his birthday. For a 9-year-old, because we always had to nag him. What do you want for your birthday? What do you want for Christmas? Always had to nag him. Didn't want for anything really. And what do you want? What do you want? And said, "Oh, I want to get a cocktail shaker." I said, "What do you mean? You want to make milkshakes?" He said, "No, I want to make some cocktails." So he wasn't daft. He would make cocktails for me and mum, and he was very good at it. The barista videos on YouTube. He loved all the flying around of the bottles and the cups and all that kind of stuff. And I'll never forget one time he wanted to make us some cocktails, because I think we were having a street barbecue, so he made the street some cocktails, and his dad, we need some supplies. So I went up to the off license, our local off license, and went inside, and Ollie'd given me a list of what to buy for these drinks, and he never drank anything, I promise you, but he got me a list of
Ingredients.
bottles of drink, and vodka came up, and I looked at the shelf. There was about a dozen different types of vodka. So somebody opened the door as they were going, and I leant out, went, "Ollie, what vodka was it?" And he shouts back, "Smirnoff." And the guy behind the counter looked at me, looked at Ollie, looked at me. He's like, "What the?" I said, "No, he makes cocktails for mum and dad. He doesn't drink any of it." And it's just one of those moments. But he was brilliant at it, and he loved it, and he loved watching other people enjoy themselves. And of course, the route to that with a cocktail is that everybody gets merry, and he had a great time doing it. But that was just one of the things he was involved with. I mean,
I remember you mentioning he was quite keen on fishing and rugby.
yeah, he's brilliant. He was brilliant at fishing. He had a natural cast, and he just liked the outdoors. Because I go fishing, we go night fishing, so it's like you take like a mini tent and you camp by the lake, and you can fish for days like that. But I used to take it with me. I mean, I can remember one Easter we spent 3 nights up at the lake because he didn't want to go home. So we just climbing trees, making little fires, cooking sausages, pretending to catch fish that weren't there because it was too cold. But we had a great time, and that's what he liked doing. He loved the outdoors. Anything adventurous. He didn't really have much fear, but he was cautious, but he wasn't very fearful. So he would, he was quite an adventurer. And in the rugby, accompanied to rugby when London Irish were up at Reading. And the first year we lost Ollie, I say lost, he was taken from us. London Irish put on an amazing tribute for him at half time on the match near his birthday. And it was him playing drums with the drummers because he loved the drums, and we'd sit behind the drummers, and I caught a video of him using one of the drummers' drums, and I'd always promised him I'd get him his name on the big screen one day, meaning as a player or as a happy birthday type thing. And they played this video, and it was amazing, and the crowd's reaction just floored me because the drummers joined in with the video, and then they did a minute's clap for him after the video. And I was up there blubbering like an idiot, couldn't support my own weight, and all my mates were in the bar. They all came out and said, "Have we missed it?" It was like, yeah. But it was a special moment because he loved going to the club, loved watching the games, loved the burgers and the sweets more, but he loved socialising with the crowd. I'd buy him a bag of sweets and say, "You've got to share it," and he'd go down the aisles and share it with all the people, and because he got season tickets, the same faces in the same areas, and he was well known, and we made some great friends at London Irish in the crowd, and they have been amazing since he was taken. The week after we lost him, they played a game with Harlequins, and it was a ferocious game, and they drew it. And then a couple of weeks later, Steve Maffey, who's one of the players, sent me his shirt with a letter saying that they'd played that game for Ollie, which blew me because we weren't anybody, and you don't expect that. You don't expect that from anybody, but it was amazing. The generosity and the love for him actually has been quite overwhelming. But yeah, he was a character and a half.
Seems like he's a proper kind of like lad's lad, like a proper.
Yeah, well, he wasn't. He's very sensitive because obviously, again, we found out with the autism that he could sense other. I think they call it empathic, where they sense other people's feelings and emotions.
So, what age, if you don't mind me asking, did you come across that he had autism?
Well, sadly, that was in the year that was 2020, because his birthday was November, and we got a diagnosis just around that time, because he'd been struggling at school. Loud noises. To put it in perspective, you go from primary school where you are wrapped in cotton wool and learning is fun, to secondary school where there are older kids around. It's a complete system shock, and I've had conversations with Ollie's friends, and they still find it traumatizing that they go from primary school to secondary school, and bang, you're expected to grow up straight away. And it's not. You're only 11 when you go to secondary school, and there's no preparation for that. You know, primary school's a lovely atmosphere, and I loved going to the primary school. We've got a lot to be grateful for Emma Green Primary School and Tonya, the headmistress. But when they make that break and go to secondary school, it's
a big jump.
it's a big shock to them. You know, they're hearing language they wouldn't hear. You know, people are saying and doing things that they wouldn't have seen before. Plus, there's the level of structure that you have during secondary school. You know, you've got to be in certain places at certain times, whereas in primary school, you're just sat in your little classroom with all your friends all day long. You know, it's very different, and he was very wary of that. And the thing that struck us most was that our daughter had been patterned the year before Ollie went to secondary school. So I involved the police and I involved the headmistress, and he saw all that. And unfortunately, that sent him on a path where he felt that he needed protection when he went to secondary school. So he sought the protection of other older kids who eventually turned on him. And it's quite scary that a child thinks they need protection to go to school. That is so wrong. And we had no inclination of this until we were dealing with social services because Ollie was groomed during the lockdown period. You know, people get at him through his phone, through his Xbox, asking him to do things which were dangerous, very dangerous. But we managed to prove that he was a victim and he had no criminal intention. But he didn't have any criminal intention. He was soft as putty. He was, you know, he was the one that's always looking after everybody else. And you know, like I said just now, he felt emotion a lot, and he was always helping his friends. I mean, I caught him 4 o'clock one morning talking a girl down that was suicidal. I said, Ollie, you're 12, mate. You shouldn't be dealing with this. And he goes, no, I've got her. So I let him carry on. And then the next morning she sent him a text back and said, oh, thank you very much. You know, you really helped me. But that's who he was. That's what he was like. And that's why he went to the field, because he'd ended on bad terms with the girlfriend, and that's what she did to him. That's how she paid him back. He didn't go over there for a fight. He went there to see his friend and end on good terms. And in fact, it was me that forced him to split up with her, because I felt she was a toxic influence. I didn't want him to have a girlfriend at that age. It's too young. You don't need girlfriends. Again, that's all pressure from social media. You have girlfriend. You don't need a girlfriend at that age. Full stop. Go on your bike, climb a tree. You know too much, too young. And I was always saying this to Ollie: you're growing up too fast. Stop and smell the roses. That's where the rose came from, with all the stuff we're doing. But it's, you know, stop and smell the roses. Enjoy the moment. Don't race ahead, because you know, you've got a long time to be an adult, but enjoy your childhood. And this is sadly what social media has done, is stripped our children of their childhoods because of what they're exposed to.
Can you kindly recall the day when Ollie was taken away from yourself?
Well, this is, I don't know if anyone else experiences this, but I wake up with that day in my head, and I go to sleep with that day in my head. And it's filled when I sleep. That's what my dreams are filled of. And we'd had a mixed Christmas, because we always enjoyed Christmas. We always looked forward to Christmas, because it was the time we all spent together at home doing what we wanted, rather than, you know, you can spend most of your life doing what everybody else wants. And then, you know, Christmas was the time period that we were at home. But there was something off this Christmas. He wasn't himself. We'd just had 2 years of lockdown. You know, they weren't in a particularly good place, either of the children, but he was very low, and we tried to perk him up and, you know, make him, you know, think of the future, because you could see an end to lockdown. It was coming, you know, with the vaccine and everything else. The end was coming. But that morning he helped me with some errands. We had a chat. You know, we warned him about knife crime, because I was constantly talking to him about knife crime, because I was aware of the dangers, and especially Ollie's age group. It's that whole alpha male thing. There's, you know, it's meaningless and pointless, but for some reason 13-year-old boys just seem to go for knives, and it's not good, it's not clever, and it's not cool. It's very, very dangerous. But we'd had that conversation with him that morning. We'd had breakfast or brunch with him, we had a chat with him. I'd bought him a technical Lego car kit for Christmas, and he was struggling with a bit of it. So I'd sat him down and, you know, talked him through why he was struggling, and it was a simple thing as in his head he was reading the instructions backwards. So the drawing picture of how you build Lego through the instruction manual, he was physically building it the opposite to what the drawing was showing him. So it didn't fit. The part didn't fit, and he just thought.
Was that from the autism? Do you think?
Maybe, yeah. But I bought him that kit because I wanted to see, because he was struggling at school. I wanted to see whether he could build something. You know, because obviously I've been in construction for 40 years. There's an opportunity for him to learn a trade if he could just, you know, relate to instructions, kind of building. And, you know, going into that Christmas, I was in a job I didn't particularly enjoy, and I was thinking, you know, planning ahead, you know, what could I get him into that we could do together, go into business, you know, and so all that was going on. But the conversations I had with him that morning were all positive. You know, I told him that I didn't feel Christmas had gone particularly well that year, but, you know, there's lots coming around the corner. He loved to ski. We only went once, but he absolutely loved it, and he loved the snow. He gives everything 110%, and the skiing, you know, he was always the last one off the slope at the end of the day. We went for a week in 2018, and, you know, he just couldn't get him off the slope. So I promised him a trip. You know, the following once lockdown was over, I promised him a ski trip. You know, he wanted to go to Florida, Disneyland, wanted to do the Harry Potter and the Star Wars exhibitions at, you know, in Florida, because we'd been to Euro Disney when they were really small, and so the next step was Florida, and that would have been a great holiday. But then of surfing, he wanted to go out surfing as you know, there's all these things that I was promising that we would do, because he'd been so low. And honestly, that morning we'd had a conversation around his autism, and he'd accepted he was autistic. And what I kept trying to say to him was, like, just because you're autistic, it doesn't mean you're not. Nobody's normal. There is no normal.
Yeah.
But you're different. It's just you're wired a little bit different. That's all, and we have to learn how to handle that. That's all it is. And because autism, there are varying degrees of it. I don't think he was severely on the spectrum for it, but he was definitely there. Okay. And the more I was learning about Ollie, the more I was learning about myself. I mean, I had a conversation with an autistic the other day, and it's like, oh, I do this, oh, so do I. You know, so you're constantly learning. And, you know, I would say that to him is, you know, I said, what's your superpower? That was one of the last things I said to him, because with the autism, generally you excel at one thing, but that's normal for everybody. You might fail at one thing, but you're really good at something else. But everybody's like that. But just with autism, it's a little bit more focused on sorry, I lost my thread. It's gone.
So we were talking about the day when
well, yeah, we'd had all those conversations. I made him loads of promises. I'd done a lot of things that morning, and we were getting ready to go back to work. And then the rugby was on, so I'd turned the rugby on to watch Premiership, and then Amanda was downstairs reading. And then Ollie just says, I'm going outside. And it didn't occur to me to stop him, because he was going to meet somebody. It was unusual that she didn't come to the house, because normally she came to the house, and the red flag should have been there.
What was this, daytime, right?
Yeah, it was in the afternoon, late afternoon. Yeah. And we just didn't twig it. We just didn't, because we were getting ready to go back to work. And you know, he left the house. Love you, mum. I heard him leave, and I went to grab him. I had a feeling in my stomach, and I'll regret this for the rest of my days, but I had a feeling something was wrong. And I went to grab the door, but I needed a new hip at the time, and I couldn't walk, and my knee had seized up and my hip had frozen, and I couldn't get to the door. So I went to go to the window, bang on the window was locked, and it didn't occur to me to ring him. And he was out of earshot of me banging on the window, and I banged on the window, didn't turn round. And I just thought to myself, what the hell am I doing? He's going out to meet somebody we know. And as he walked over to the field, he met up with two people. One of the people he met that was with the girl, he should have run a mile from straight away anyway, because we knew of him, we knew his history. Ollie would never have gone near him under normal circumstances. So that should have been alarm bells. He should have run. And we'd said to him earlier that day, you know, what if someone comes at you with a knife? He goes, "Oh, drop him, Dad." He goes, "No, Ollie, you run, you run, even if you've got nothing on your feet, you run." And he went out to the field in sliders. So, you know, that was a bad move because he had trainers on. He could have run, but he wasn't like that as a person. He hated people being belittled, or he'd always stand up. Yeah, he hated bullying. He always I mean, the amount of mums that come up to me and say, "Thank you for raising Ollie the way you did," because he was the only one that stood up for my son when no one else did. And you know, I've had 2 or 3 mums say that to me. And you know, and it's just he would not back down. And he loved boxing. He loved Muhammad Ali. We watched loads of documentaries on that. But I taught him about this is bittersweet, really. I taught him a move which, you know, Muhammad Ali, when you wear out the opposition, you take the hits, you take the hits, you take the hits, and when they're tired, bang, southpaw. And he used that move on the boy that was beating him. And so we got one in, and he knocked him off his feet, I think. But you know, sadly, the other boy was carrying a knife and stabbed him in the back and in the chest, and it was a coward's move. But the wounds Ollie suffered were both fatal. Each wound would have been fatal, so 2 together he didn't stand a chance. But it's yeah, and in fact the other day we only looked over the footage for the first officer on scene, the body cam, and because we're all remembering things differently, and we actually watched but I wanted to see him again anyway, because, you know, it's amazing. You remember them when they're really tiny, but you forget how big he was. I mean, he towered above me, and
Oh, is it?
yeah, I used to give him a cuddle and go under his arm, you know, because he got so tall, and his granddad was really tall, and, you know, watching that video was horrific. But I would, with that video, I would make the perpetrators watch it, because when they're arrested, they're basically removed from society. They have no idea what's going on outside. They don't understand the consequences of what they've done. So I'm going to be urging that body cam footage is shown to the perpetrators and their families, because the devastation from this, it just grows and grows. It doesn't go away. Pain doesn't get any easier. In fact, it gets harder with every anniversary and every birthday. But it's something I feel they should see, to put it into context of what they've done, and then learn about the repercussions of it, because it's affected our entire community. It's not just us. It's not just Ollie's the victim. It's not us as his immediate family. It's our entire family. It's our community. Ollie's friends from school, you know, they didn't deserve this either, but they're struggling, and it's not fair on them. They haven't done it. Nobody deserves to go this way, but it's the ramifications of after the event. They're just huge, and this is what part of our message is. Actually, a lot of the work we're doing is to try and get this message across to parents and to kids themselves. Don't make that decision to carry a knife. Don't take it. Because I had a chat with one young man at the Apollo Centre last year, where his gran was worried because he was carrying a knife to school, and he was carrying knives to school because he was terrified. He had no one to turn to. No one understood the situation he was in, but I did, because obviously I'd been there. And I took him to one side and said, "Look, I'm not going to have a go at you. I know what you're going through. You need to not carry a knife." He was terrified to go to school. You know, what sort of country have we got now where children are terrified to go to school? That's so bad. And it's carrying a knife is never good, because the consequences of not just your actions but somebody else's actions, you could drop that knife and that get used on you, you know. I understand why kids carry knives. You know, some carry through fears, some carry to intimidate, but you don't know the difference. If a person stood in front of you with a knife, you don't know if he's carrying that to protect himself or he wants to hurt you.
Yeah.
So it's just don't do it, really.
Okay. Obviously, you mentioned about the impact. I mean, what impact has it had on yourself, your family, obviously Ollie's friends, since he was sadly taken away?
Yeah, it's you can't quantify it, but everybody in our community's been affected.
Yeah.
Everyone that knew Ollie's been affected. You know, Ollie's school friends. You know, they were studying during. A lot of them are going through GCSEs now, and they're struggling with that because, you know, he's never out of your head, and I don't know if it's the same for everybody, but it's constantly in your head all the time. It doesn't go away. So if you're studying for GCSEs and that's there, you know, these people grew up with him and they loved him, and he was taken so brutally and horrifically, and he didn't deserve that. He was, you know, he was. Someone asked me to describe him. We had a good soul. He had a really good soul. And he didn't like conflict, but he would stand up for himself. And this is what I hope that his friends see and realise, is that he would battle on, and he would protect them at all costs, and he wouldn't want them to be suffering the pain that they're suffering. And, you know, everybody handles grief differently, but it's still there all the time, every day, and you just don't get away from it. You know, and if you do something nice and you feel guilty because you've done something nice and he can't. I mean, I do a lot of stuff because Ollie can't do it now, whereas before, you know, just go to work, come home, be with the kids, and that was it, and with the odd fishing trip in between. But now somebody asks me to do something, I'll go and do it because Ollie can't. And, you know, you feel you like doing it for him.
So you feel like you're kind of representing him still?
Yeah, of course you do, yeah. Because he's not physically here, but he's here and he's here.
Yeah.
And that, you know, and our daughter, she's got two grieving parents, and I don't wish that on anybody. That's horrific. You know, through illness, you can understand. You know, losing a child is horrific in any circumstances, but have one taken in this manner is just brutal. And, you know, he skipped out the door happy, and he didn't come home. I said goodbye to him in the back of an ambulance. I couldn't touch him because he was forensic evidence. And this is another thing you don't realise. The moment they're stabbed, they are forensic evidence. So whether they survive or not, they are evidence. And obviously we couldn't touch him. And I got to hold his hand briefly, but I wasn't allowed near him because in case I contaminated the scene. And it's really.
So how did you guys find out what had happened?
One of the kids come and knocked on the door. Somebody was treating Ollie, and she hit the boy to knock on our front door. I was upstairs. And there was a knock on the front door. We expected Ollie to come in with the girl, and he didn't. It was this other boy stood there, and I heard Amanda scream, "What do you mean he's been stabbed?" And then, of course, I shot up out of bed, ran down the stairs, pushed this kid out of the way, ran over the field, and there he was, on his back being treated. And he'd, you know, I'm a diver, or used to be a diver, so I know what oxygen starvation does to the brain. You've got 3 or 4 minutes. Once you start losing blood, you've got 3 or 4 minutes. The brain can survive. Beyond that, it's no good. The body can be kept alive artificially, but the brain is gone. But he hemorrhaged so badly that he had a massive heart attack, and he choked on his own blood, basically. And that was another child that done that to him. And so yeah, as much as I've got right here, I've got to pay credit to the emergency services because they fought for an hour and a half to keep him alive. And it's that, you know, in your gut he's gone, but you know that the hope is there that he will pull through. You know, the girls were praying, and you know, consoling each other, but it's I knew just by his reaction watching him. But
Okay. Do you feel that there could have been any more type of prevention for the young people that were involved in this, whether that be from the schools, the councils, other agencies?
yeah, we've learnt through the work that we've been doing that there is a thing called the Data Protection Act. So any child that goes into care, they immediately fall under the Data Protection Act. But what we're seeing is a failure of a system. Each body have their own procedures and rules and working implements in place, but what should really happen is if somebody is flagged, so just for an example, somebody's brought in, they've been arrested for, I don't know, robbery or carrying a knife or whatever, that should raise a red flag, which then all the agencies involved in that child should see.
Yeah.
So that should raise a red flag with the police.
Yeah.
It should raise a red flag with social services. It should raise a red flag with the school.
Yeah.
I can't go into Ollie's case specifically because there's stuff going on behind that. But this red flag would then link that child's name to, any activity that's been going on. If that child is struggling, what are the reasons that this kid has come into custody? Not everybody that comes into custody is a criminal. They can, 9 times out of 10, they can be victims, and they're just fighting back. And if you're groomed, you're doing something because the gang has told you to do it because you're scared. I mean, one of the things Ollie would say was, snitches get stitches, and it used to make me so angry because I was there to protect him. It's not the other way around. He was still a child and he was in my care. And that makes me so angry because they don't understand the consequences of not talking. And but anyway, this red flag system, if we had this red flag, unfortunately they hide behind Data Protection Act quite a lot. It's not, it's a child welfare issue. It's the welfare of the child first, but the way our system's set up, it's not the case. And it produces so much paperwork that the names get lost within the paperwork. It needs to be simplified. It's each department should be able to talk to each other via a red flag per child. And this is, once we're through with the online safety bill, this is our next approach to try and get the system changed. It has to change. Too many children are losing their lives. Children are groomed into criminality. It's too easy to groom a child into criminality because the law isn't there to protect the child. The way the law's written, once you're under a certain age, you can't be arrested or detained. Therefore, you're playing straight into the criminals' hands, gangs' hands, because they recruiting younger and younger now. And unfortunately, they're going undetected because the system doesn't work. So we're doing a lot of work with Thames Valley Police on this very issue, correcting the system, seeing things differently, understanding autistic child. I mean, autism is an excuse for murder. I mean, during Ollie's trial, that was tried. They tried to pull the autistic card, but we understood that a defense lawyer is going to do that. It's the only card they've got. But we wouldn't stand for autism being used as an excuse for murder, because if it holds tight in one case, every kid that comes through the door, their prosecution lawyer is going to say they're autistic. But we fought against that, and our barrister effectively that wasn't able to be used as an excuse for murder, because you do know right from wrong, whether you're autistic or not. You do. Right and wrong is a fundamental instinct within every child, and you can't use autism as an excuse for murder. But
so can you tell us some more about the campaign that you and obviously your wife have been doing since Ollie's death? Like, what's been going on? 'Cause I know you guys have been doing quite a lot of stuff.
We're involved in this.
But
if you'd said to me 3 years ago you'd be involved with this, I'd have laughed at you. But since losing Ollie, because social media, I understood very early on how dangerous social media was.
Yeah.
It's unregulated,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of people making a lot of money out of children.
Yeah.
In any other industry, that is illegal. But online, because it was never regulated and they were allowed to self-regulated, it's greed for the dollar. They're using children to make an awful lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And effectively they're doing it illegally, but there are no laws in place to say that. So when Ollie was about 6 or 7, he had a question for me, something to do with education. Why aren't life skills taught in schools? And I said, well, I can't answer that.
Good question.
Yeah, it was. I can't answer that. I said, but somebody who can is the Minister for Education, so write to him.
Mm-hmm.
So he sat down, wrote him or her, I can't remember who it was now, wrote them a letter. 2 weeks later, he got a response.
No way.
And it was a massive response.
Wow.
And he was made up. But I've always remembered that. And when we lost Ollie, you've got 2 choices. You can either get angry and self-destruct, or you can place that anger somewhere positive.
Yes.
And because of the way Ollie was, there was only one decision really. You know, we said to the police on day one, you need us to do anything, just ask. And we've stuck to that. And so I then put pen to paper. I mean, I was useless for 6 months. I couldn't get out of bed. And then I had a hip operation, which put me back for another, I didn't work for a year and a bit. And I lost a lot of the muscle in my body because I wasn't working. So I do a physical job, and once you stop, it all goes to nothing. So it's taken me a long time to get back into work. But while I was off, I then sat behind a computer, I wrote a letter to the Commission for the Online Safety, because I knew of the Online Safety Bill. It'd been around for 5 years. Theresa May had started that.
Can you just explain for the viewers what the Online Safety Bill is?
Right, okay.
A lot of people don't know.
Yeah, right. When you use a phone, everything on that phone is there to make money.
Yeah.
It's not a free app. They're collecting and controlling your data. It's data research. They are selling your details to other companies that use those for advertising, licensing. But there is a darker side to it. The suicide content, for instance. This is all controlled by a thing called an algorithm. An algorithm is a computer program which, if you click on something once, it will then determine whether you should see more of that, and it would just keep feeding your phone that information, because these companies get paid through advertising. The more you're looking at certain sites, the more they're getting paid. If every time you click on anything on a phone, someone is making money from you, and that makes me angry. And child safety, there's no child safety procedures for social media. People can do and say, it's lawless. People say and do exactly what they like online with no consequence. What the Online Safety Bill is doing is it will put it into law that these companies are responsible for the welfare of the children that use a mobile phone. I mean, adults can be a nightmare on a mobile phone, let alone a child. And so they've had no protection up until now. I wrote to the committee. We've since the impact of that letter, the Online Safety Bill has had 3 readings. It's in the House of Lords at the moment. We've got together with some other families, with bereaved families for online safety, with Baroness Biban Kidron. She's been campaigning for years to get some kind of legislation which makes these companies accountable for the damage they're doing. I mean, you have to look at it this way. Every time somebody gets tries to take their own life, gets murdered through social media, there is an entire network of people that pick up the pieces, from social workers, teachers, bereavement counsellors. the police force, the emergency services, so paramedics, doctors, all these people are paying for the aftermath of what social media is doing to our children.
Yeah.
So through this bill, we will then be able to make certain things illegal through the power of Ofcom. Ofcom will be able to wield the law, which will then be able to fine these companies for the content on their phones, on their apps. TikTok have just been fined today £12 million for deliberately targeting children under the age of 13 for market research and sending them stuff they really shouldn't see.
Yeah.
So this is a step in the right direction, because if you're not accountable for something, you can do exactly as you please. That is lawlessness, and that is going on through your phone. And we were up to the House of Lords a couple of weeks ago. We told our stories, the 5 families each told their stories. Each story is horrific, and it's all through social media. But the power of that.
So there's numbers of families that have been affected by this social media.
There are 4 other families that we're working with as a collective to put pressure on the government to get this bill through, and it's worked amazingly well. But we're doing it not just for our children, but for the next generation of children that are using social media, because you know, my child was in a mess because of social media. That's not fair. These children need a childhood, and it's lawless. They are fed so much false information, wrong information.
Yeah.
And you know, self-harm, for instance, it's an algorithm will pump you information on suicide.
Yeah.
Even if you don't ask for it, you've only got to click on something once, and that algorithm has got you.
Triggers it.
Yeah, exactly that. And we have evidence now. You know, we worked with Panorama. We did Ollie's story, murder by social media, because we felt that other parents needed to have that information because we didn't. He was killed through social media. There's no two ways about it. We have the evidence, and you know, the sequence of events for Ollie's case, it is horrific. They were using 11 platforms to effectively trap him, set him up and harm him.
11 platforms?
Yeah, and those are the ones that we know about. There are more, because what kids do is they'll start a conversation in one chat room, be chatting to one kid, they'll go off to another chat room, chat to somebody else behind that child's back, which is what happened in Ollie's case. So they just skip platform to platform to platform, so you can't keep track of the conversation. I mean, hats off to Thames Valley Police, because they managed to gather all the data and synchronize it and put it in a timeline which proved the guilt of everybody involved, which was groundbreaking, because had it been 6 months earlier, they'd never been able to do that, because they just didn't have the technology. And part of the online safety bill is we're after Ollie's data, because there is still incriminating data on Ollie's phone, and it's not physically on his phone, it's out there somewhere of these companies, because when you do something on your phone, you erase it on your phone, but it is never gone. It is still out there, and there's incriminating evidence that I saw on Ollie's phone, which he deleted, which I know is out there. If we can get access to that, then I will be pursuing those individuals legally, because it does not disappear. It's always there. But at the moment you can't access it because these companies don't want you to. They don't want you to admit that there's a problem, so they just deny everything. And getting that data is important for us as a grieving family, because we want to understand what his world was like, but also you want to try and improve the situation for the next generation. And the only way to do that is to talk to your local MP, get involved with government. I mean, I never expected to be in the House of Lords. I was sat in the House of Lords telling Ollie's story. Ollie's name has been spoken about 4 or 5 times in the House of Commons, which is very powerful, you know, for us as a family, because you don't want to be there, but to have Parliament acknowledge that this, you know, we're in this position because of social media is massive for us, because we want to get this bill through. We want to change the law. We want to make people accountable for. In the real world, you're accountable for your actions and what you say. Online, you do what you like, and that's not good enough. So really, that's what our main focus at the moment is, the online safety bill. But the House of Lords effectively told the government it needs to pass this year. We understand it's taken nearly 5 years, but because if you get it wrong, you want to dot the I's and cross the T's, but if you don't get it right, there's not a lot of chance to change that. But with the online safety bill going through, this legislation passes, we'll hopefully look at the laws around social media and around technology, because our laws are based on laws, 100 years old. This technology is moving so rapidly that the law cannot keep up. And so that's something else we're focusing on. But we're very privileged to work with the people we're working with. But as one of the families said, we've met the nicest people in the worst circumstance. But as a collective, if we can, get this bill through, then we've lost our children, but we don't want anyone else to lose theirs. So that's really what the message is. But I mean, Stuart,
I want to say thank you, because what you're doing, especially this online safety bill, trying to protect, like you said, future generations, other children, it's a massive, massive thing, that you guys are doing.
We've lived through the harm of social media.
And
unfortunately, we've paid the highest price. But I could see the damage it was doing very early on. The child, our daughter didn't have a phone till she was 11, but her and her friends colluded with each other, told all their parents that all the other kids were getting phones, so they needed one, and before they've all got a phone. And that's what kids are like. Kids can be devious. And but Ollie had my old phone. We put a SIM card in it, and he was using my old phone, and we went on holiday, and he was using my phone to play an app, and I can't remember what it was, Angry Birds or something like that. It was one of those similar apps, and he was on it all the time. He's like, get off it. Got home, and I had a £200 bill from Apple. I was like, what's that all about? In-app purchases. I'd never heard of an in-app purchase. But he'd spent his whole holiday buying it. I can get that for free. I can get this for free. Oh, it's Dad's phone. It's not costing me anything. He's only about 5 or 6. And I when I got that bill, obviously I was furious, but I didn't understand it. So I rang Apple. In those days, you could phone somebody. You can't phone any of these companies now. It's all chatbots, and it is
actual stuff.
We're a social animal. You've got to reverse that. That's just so bad. But anyway, I spoke with Apple, and they refunded me my money, but I didn't tell Ollie that, and they actually walked me through the procedures to protect my phone so that he couldn't do it again, which I thought was brilliant of them, because they are there to make money, but for them to help me protect my bank account from my son was amazing. And from that moment on, alarm bells rang, because if a 6-year-old can do that through a phone, what's next? And I would always get upset because Ollie would know things too early. He'd find out about things through his phone and through the internet, basically. And it's like, you don't need to know that. I had conversations with him way too young, because you don't need to know that information yet. You need to have a childhood. You need to be a kid or a child. But it's just,
that's the thing I have noticed, that it's like young people are growing up so fast. They're having all of this information just fed through
can't be
them.
good for them. And how can you absorb it? There's too much information.
It's too much.
You're not back in my day, if you wanted to understand something, you did some research. Now they just Google it.
Literally.
So that whole thought process,
they can Google, just ask Siri.
is gone. Yeah.
Oh, Siri.
I don't use that. That's how out of date I am. But they now talk to their phones instead of each other. It's just bizarre. It's
mental.
Yeah, and you see it every day. Especially if I'm driving around near the school on the way home, at kicking out time. All the kids are all got their faces in their phones. It's
hooked.
Yeah, I know. And through Frances Haugen, who's the whistleblower for Facebook, I had a conversation with her a while back, and I could have spoken to her for a week, because she was everything that I was suspecting these companies of doing,
Yeah.
she was saying, yes, they do this, yes, they do that. You are not safe. You know, they put on this wholesome image, and you know, we're there to help you. We're your friend. They're not. They're milking you, and they're corrupting society. The bigger picture of this is society is breaking down because people's morals and boundaries are getting broken, and therefore society is not working properly, and it's because of social media. It's because people believe they can say and act and do as they please. You can't. There are laws, you know, because one of the issues in the online safety bill was freedom of speech, and a minister stood up in the last meeting we had and said, actually, this is not a freedom of speech issue. This is a child welfare issue. You'll get no resistance from us on this, which was a massive breakthrough.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, it's a huge breakthrough. But it's all about perspective, you know. You can, freedom of speech is not freedom to abuse. And that's, I think, the grey areas. That's what people are getting confused. Is, as I said to you earlier, you know, if you go up to someone and you walk up to someone and start shouting at them, so I'm going to kill you, you can be arrested for that. I mean, something I used in the chat I had with the kids down at New Meanings the other day was that you can be arrested for swearing. It is a criminal offence to swear. But no one gets arrested for it, because if they did, the prisons would be full. You know, but the law's there for a reason, and you know, just respect and learn the law. But you know, people don't, because they can do exactly what they want, and that's not necessarily a good thing. It's eroding society, and you know, that's part of our. We've learned that the hard way. But you've got a chance to do something about it and help the next generation. So that's really where we're at.
So if you were to speak to someone, a young person who's, you know, carrying a knife, carrying a weapon, what would you say to them personally?
Well, firstly, if you've been asked by someone to carry a weapon, they're not your friend. They're there to abuse you. So that's a red flag straight away. You know, in Ollie's case, silence cost him his life, because only a few days before he was taken, I told him that I'm there to protect you. You need to talk to me. You need to tell me what's going on, because we knew something was going on. We had a feeling in our stomach there was something going on, and he wouldn't talk to us. Snitches get stitches, is all he'd say. And it's like, what have you got yourself involved with? You're only 12. You're only just 13. You know what?
So to stop you, Stuart, right? Because you
go on.
mentioned this. Snitches get stitches. What I explain to my young people when I work with them, this phrase has been taken from the criminal world.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not for normal civilians like us, because all you're doing is telling the truth. So this whole snitches get stitches, it's not for normal people. Tell the truth and speak. We're not criminals. If you're in the criminal world, that's you. But for normal children, for normal people, it's not for us to be using.
Well, it becomes like it's like pop culture, isn't it? It's a phrase that becomes pop culture.
Yeah.
Kids use it because everybody else is using it.
Literally.
It doesn't mean it's right. And if they stopped and actually thought about what they were saying, snitches get stitches. That says, if you go and talk to somebody about me, I'm going to stab you,
literally,
or cut you. You know, so that's horrific for a 12, 13-year-old boy to be growing up with. But yeah, if someone asks you to carry a knife, then you need to question why they're asking you to carry a knife. If you're terrified at school, you need to talk to someone. Talk to a friend, talk to a mentor. I know it's not easy to talk to your own parents. I mean, Ollie used to find it difficult to talk to me, so I said to him, go and talk to your granddad. Your granddad's your best friend. Go and talk to him. If you can't tell me, tell your granddad, at least so we know what's going on. And he did, but he did talk to me a lot. You know, I loved conversations with him, but you know, they could be quite scary, and you're trying to put them on the right path. And but yeah, if someone asks you to carry a knife, it's a dangerous and dark road. I mean, one of my messages to the kids is talk to whoever, because that can save your life.
100%.
if you're hanging around with people that are offering you money, giving you gifts, nothing's free in this life. There's payback there somewhere. They will ask you to do something one day which you're probably not comfortable with, but they've given me all this free stuff, so you do it, and then you get in deeper, and then you owe them, and then it escalates, and that is a very terrifying place to be, because we went through that with Ollie. Ollie was groomed. He was very naive in that respect. He trusted people. Unfortunately, that was the autism. He just trusted people, full stop. You can't trust everybody. You need to have that doubt within you, that voice that why is this happening? Why has he said that? You need that. That's your safeguard. That's you protecting yourself. Listen to it, because if you don't, you can end up in a very bad situation very quickly. And we understand that the pressures kids are under now is just ridiculous. Especially at the moment, they've just lost 2 years of their lives, 2 years of schooling, 2 years of social education, 2 years of moving on, just been wiped off their book. So that if someone's 19, effectively mentally they're only 17, because they haven't had that 2 years of development. And that needs educating, and you need to slow down as well. Stop trying to live life at 100 miles an hour. Stop trying to, there's one thing I would say to Ollie is 5% of the world's population own 95% of the wealth. So, you're looking at we would call them mentors, but the YouTubers, the gamers and all that. I was lucky enough to work for a gamer. And I knew his face because I'd seen it 1,000 times in Ollie's bedroom. And he taught Ollie to play Fortnite, and they're all playing Call of Duty, but they're not actually playing Call of Duty. They're playing the zombie game on the back of it. So boys in their Xboxes and PlayStations, they learn through these people. But you have to be the first at everything to make real money. Everyone after is an imitator. And I had a conversation with this guy, and he was brilliant. He was lovely to talk to, but I'd seen him 1,000 times in Ollie's bedroom. It was just bizarre. I was talking to this guy, and he'd been teaching my son something that I had no clue about, and he was lovely. But the conversation turned to that every kid wants to be a gamer or a YouTuber. But unless you're the first, or the first handful of people, what happens is that just gets watered down. And when you're at the bottom of the pyramid starting out, there's no money left because they've had it all. So the kids need that. That needs to be told to kids. It's great to have aspirations and dreams, but be a bit realistic about it.
That's it.
Follow your dreams. Because people do make it. But the reality of it is, it's only a small percentage of the population that actually achieve what they want to, but don't give up trying, because it could be you. So I know that's a mixed message, but the reality of social media needs educating. So we did our best, but we were just out of our depth and didn't understand it, full stop. I still to this day don't. We set up an Instagram account because Ollie's friends wanted to send us videos and pictures, which was amazing, because we were seeing things. We thought he hated school. Actually, no, he didn't. He just couldn't deal with it. And, he was a great personality at school. The teacher said, if there was a crowd of kids, Ollie was in the middle of it. But he thought he was alone because of his autism. And it's like, he was a million miles from being alone. He had, all these people that lined the streets at his funeral.
I saw the bench as well.
I mean, that was amazing. Ollie's friends sit on that and talk a lot. But that's why we put it there, because that was such a horrific place. I mean, everybody loved that field. They all walk their dogs, ride their bikes. The kids go over there, enjoy the summer. They spend summer evenings over there, and it was a place of something absolutely horrible. But Ollie would hate that. So we put the bench there because we wanted them to enjoy that spot again, and they do. They come back and they sit and they talk, and when there's something going on at school, they're all over the field doing whatever they do. But they use the bench, and that's what we wanted. We, out of something so negative, we wanted some positivity. And that's really how it came about. We were lucky enough to meet Steve Radford through Caroline, who was worked for the council, who looks after the parks. She puts in contact with Steve. Steve came up with some ideas, and Ollie would always entertain his friends. We got a second-hand sofa bed, and in our old dining room, because I built an extension on the front at the back of the house. It's a kitchen diner, but the dining room then became Ollie's playroom, and I put a big TV in there, Xbox. They could watch movies and play games, but all you would hear is giggling and laughter all the time when they were in there. And Ollie had a friend called Evie, and she came round to see us because she's moved away, and she popped in to see us. And we were talking about a bed. She said, you know what? I'd love it if they made a sofa for his bench, because he loved his sofa. He said, oh, but they won't do that. And I said, I've got to pull my phone out, and I showed her the picture. So, well, funny you should say that. And yeah, and bless her, she got emotional. But you know, and it's a talking point, and it draws people back to the area, which is what we want. And actually, we had a conversation yesterday. It's going in a book.
Was it?
Somebody's writing a book on monuments around Reading.
Yeah.
For it's partly a catalogue, so that, you know, if these monuments disappear, there's a record of it. But she's doing a lovely piece for Ollie and with his bench, because it's made it into the book. And also Reading, we're doing an Amnesty art project. There's going to be a sculpture placed in the Oracle, which will then the likes of Number 5, Brighter Futures, New Meanings can then all link into via a QR code, so that kids know they're there. Any help groups, mentoring, all that kind of thing, all be linked in. Thames Valley Police, the Violence Reduction Unit, they'll all be linked in, so that you can ask for help quite easily rather than have to go looking for it. It's just there on an app. And well, we deliberately didn't use an app because apps can be viewed by other people. If you do a QR code, you can scan it and no one will ever know you've done it.
Okay.
And there's going to be a little bit of augmented reality around it. There's going to be an educational piece. So hopefully we can draw everybody that works with children can then use that as a focal point for education. Be it mental health, be it living skills, be it awareness of criminal and grooming gangs and all the rest of it. So because it is all linked, sadly, and the main player in it is social media.
Brilliant. Well, Stuart, I want to thank you for coming down today.
No, pleasure. Yeah,
giving us your story, Ollie's story.
Yeah, believe me, I don't want to be sat here doing this, but I'd rather be telling Ollie off for swearing on his Xbox, but that's not the way it is now. But through Ollie, we've met some amazing people. Hopefully, we're improving things for the next generation. And because if nobody does anything now, in 10-15 years time, where are we going to be? Our kids are going to be feral, and the education system will be in tatters, because kids don't have nobody respects authority anymore. And a lot of that comes down to what they see on their phones, and that needs to change. So that's why we're doing what we do. Thank you.
No worries, Steve. Thank you for the people who have tuned in. Please take heed of what has been mentioned in this very special episode, and stay safe, make the right decisions. Thank you.